where GPT does really well is on agentic grunt work and doing design and UI tests and even data processing. It's not really putting GPT to its full advantage. So let me actually break down now actually how I'd use it. The first thing I want to do is react to Peter's post here and give you my opinion on his thoughts, because I really do agree with most of them. And then I want to go into exactly how I'm switching my AI stack. So Peter says he feels overall that Fable is a wise owl who is very thoughtful and well-spoken. GPT is like a Rottweiler who will grab the problem by the throat and not let go until it's done. I would largely agree with this distinction. Fable is definitely smarter. And for my most difficult tasks, I still want to use the smartest model in the world, technically. However, GPT 5.6, if you're spinning up or orchestrating like multiple agents, it could be very, very interesting. In other words, Fable is fundamentally the smarter model. Even at low reasoning, it can be very insightful and writes in a clear and compelling way. GPT, on the other hand, is extremely diligent. I can give it a list of 8 things to do, and you'll be sure that they get done. Some thoughts by category. UI and app building, Fable will still craft a much better UI from scratch. I think we saw that today, and I 100% agree from my tests. But I find that Fable often misses quite key things, whereas GPT 5.6 doesn't. GPT's front-end skills are a big jump versus prior models, but still not as great overall. This is the thing. If you're a GPT user, this is a big jump. And I will say this. You probably have less reason now than ever to switch to Claude. Whereas a week ago, you had an extreme reason to switch. I still think it's better to have both models, but you probably have less of a reason now. He says writing, Fable's better hands down. I would agree, but I am biased because I use Fable for writing. I have all of my skills and projects and memory engineered, so it's just annoying to switch. A and B, there's no reason to, given that it's still the better writing model. Robustness and reliability. This is where I think GPT wins, hands down. Fable seems to do things of high quality, but I can never relax with it. It always misses something. This is true on Codex as well. I'm a big fan of Codex. If you're vibe coding, I think you can't go wrong with 5.6 Codex. So obviously writing, intelligent, strategic assessment, deep framework building, etc. I would still use Fable, but for actual coding execution, there is definitely some evidence to suggest GPT would do quite well, if not better, in that environment. Other things where I like GPT but can't compare directly, video editing is actually working now. I haven't had a chance to test this out, but even on Fable, it was pretty difficult to wrangle. Computer use getting really good, very usable. Sub-agents, has been a big improvement on some of the latest GPT models. Research, I think it's getting a bit better, but still has some bad patterns. Feels like it's a bit more steerable to be a good researcher. I think both are pretty good. I actually think GPT Pro is very, very, very good for research. Multi-day runs, I personally haven't tried that much on GPT 5.6, but I love /loop and goal on Fable, and it's no different than on GPT. You can run basically multi-day runs and loops and that kind of stuff. Token efficiency, it's so much more token efficient and faster than 5.5. In reality, it's faster than Fable 2. This matters because it's faster and a tad cheaper as well. But this is really important, what he says here. On the downside, you can feel that Fable is naturally smarter. And I did have some baffling moments with 5.6 where I was getting it to make a fairly simple change in 8 terms. It seemed to get stuck in a dumb stream that was hard to get out of. So it's not AGI, don't get too carried away by the hype. I would agree that Fable is smarter. And for my most complex challenges, I'm still inclined to use Fable as my top model, but obviously I'm going to keep testing GPT because I think that the gap has definitely closed with the new model. Now, in terms of what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to keep testing 5.6 Sol, and I do like that Rottweiler versus wise owl comparison. I think that's probably the most apt comparison that I've seen on the internet. But in terms of Fable 5, I still view it as the architect. So all writing will still go through there. All important deals, offers, strategic positioning, scheming, all of that stuff will still go through Fable or Claude in general. UI, design direction from scratch, I think still will go through Fable. Deep research, I think you could do on either, but I'll probably still stick to Fable. Architecture, so building specs before a build will still go to Fable. For GPT, I think what I'm going to try a lot more of is implementation, so agentic coding. I think this is an area that we see in the benchmarks and some of the anecdotal tests that GPT should actually excel in. Multi-day runs and automations, it's another thing I want to do more of on GPT. I want to test out GPT work a bit more as well, especially with the team. To be completely honest with you, my business systems are a bit more Claude-centric. So although I have subscriptions to both, the way that I've built my business, I'm just more integrated with Claude, even though I've got portable memory systems and I can switch models, and I often do code on multiple models at once. I don't necessarily know if 5.6 is a huge reason for me to jump. Whereas if you're an existing GPT user, it's a huge reason for you to continue using GPT. So although I'll be experimenting with both, I still feel like the majority of my work will happen on Claude. Where I do legitimately think though, 5.6 will replace some tasks is the fallbacks that I was giving to Opus. So obviously Fable 5 versus 5.6 is one comparison, but 5.6 is going to be much smarter than 4.8. So if you have a choice between 5.6 or Opus 4.8, I'd rather use GPT 5.6. If I have a choice for my hardest work between Fable 5 and GPT 5.6, I'm probably still picking Fable 5. So in terms of the smartness ladder, it goes Opus 4.8, GPT 5.6, and then Fable up here. But because there's a small gap in intelligence, but quite a big gap in speed and cost, maybe instead of falling back to Opus, it's actually worth just falling back to GPT 5.6 and you'll get smarter work across the board. So that's my rough framework for it. I'll also be putting out some more content on this and doing some more tests in the future. So if you want to know how to maximize these models and get the most out of them, obviously make sure you do subscribe to the channel.